July 26, 2022 through June 25th, 2023 lasted 334 days. That is how many days Multiversus was in its open beta phase. Now, current day, Multiversus has fully launched and has been available for download for a few weeks now. So between the open beta and the full launch version of the game, there are quite a few changes that were made or differences between the two versions of the game. So in this video, we're going to go over 9 big or semi-big differences between the two versions. So let's discuss. Attack decay. For those of you that never played the open beta version or the closed alpha or the tech test versions of Multiversus, well, this is a mechanic that you've never heard of, most likely. So attack decay is when an attack is used too often in a very quick succession. So the attack itself will be applied with this attack decay, and the attack decay mechanic will end up reducing hit, stun, and damage for a specific attack. So if your opponent is playing Stripe and they're trying to hit you with the chainsaw over and over and over and over again, well, essentially the attack becomes almost useless. Again, it's going to have almost no hit stun, almost no damage, and if you're trying to rely on the move to get KOs, well, it's not going to be able to do its job because you've essentially ran that move into the ground and made it pretty much do nothing. So the attack will still work, it's practically going to do nothing. So you made the move almost worthless. I think that's a good way to put it. So attack decay used to be a pretty big deal. So there was a lot of attacks in the open beta, like Taz's tornado or Finn's backpack, just to name a couple, that ran roughshod through the entirety of the game. So this attack decay was applied to it to make those very powerful attacks, well, weaker and easier to deal with. So attack decay is something I kind of hope does come back, but it could still use a bit of tweaking. But attack decay was a pretty fun mechanic to try to help balance some more powerful attacks from being, well, too powerful in a very quick succession. Coffeezilla. This used to be one of, if not the best secondary perk in the entire game. Coffeezilla, this is one that you could apply to any character. Again, it's a secondary perk, I should say. But what did the effect do? Well, solo, your team receives a 10% reduction on ability cooldown timer. So that way, and then of course on stacked you get a 15% reduction. So think of it if you're playing Bugs Bunny and you got the safe or your rocket. Well, that move, eventually those moves do go on cooldown. So having this, or if you're playing twos and you have this stacked with your teammate, this just makes your moves come back so much faster. Character tickets. Now this was something that you never could earn in the game. This was something you had to buy from one of the founders editions of the game, but character tickets were incredibly valuable, and they still are today. So with the increased prices of characters in the range of 3,000 fighter currency all the way up to 6,000 fighter currency, this is where a character ticket used on a character that costs 6,000 has much more value than it does on a character that costs, well, 3,000. So these character tickets, if they ever came back into the game, would be incredibly useful. I'm kind of surprised that they don't just sell these, as like a one-off type of deal or a bundle of 5 or whatever it might be. I bet you people would gobble this up like immediately on the shop. This would most likely have to cost real money. But it would be kind of nice to see Multiversus run an event from maybe time to time where if you complete all challenges in said event, maybe you can earn a character ticket. And again, what does it do? It unlocks a character for free. So this would be a pretty useful thing, but I can kind of understand why it's gone, but I do think it should return in some way. Seasonal milestones. This one I was a little surprised they removed this. This was something that, well, as the name implies, it's a milestone that you work on all season. So these were challenges, and we have these, we got our daily and weekly challenges. But now think of adding seasonal milestones or seasonal challenges. And these challenges would be, well, greater in number. So you can see the ones on screen, get the most assists in 25 games. That would take a little while to get to. Wall slide 200 times. There were some easy ones, don't get me wrong, but there were some tough ones. But again, the goal is to complete these over the course of the season, and then it gives you like a big chunk of XP. Well, the ones in the open beta only gave you 600. And while that was good for the open beta, I mean, our weekly challenges give us, what, 750? So if they ever brought back seasonal milestones, again, numbers need to be adjusted in terms of how many ring outs that you need or whatever to complete whatever challenge. But if they ever brought these back, I mean, could you imagine getting like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, XP for your battle pass just completing one of these? I do think Multiversus should revisit this, bring this back, because, I mean, if you got something to work towards over the course of the season, right, and you're here to play the game, it's just more rewarding to the players. Reroll your daily challenges that you do not like. How did this not come back? So here's how it worked. This was a really good feature. I like this. So you got one free daily reroll on a challenge that you did not like. So say, for example, you're a new player, you're a free-to-play player, and you have a daily that says, I don't know, get wins or use Joker's rocket launcher or whatever it might be. Well, what if you're a new player and you don't have Joker and this is just sitting there taunting you going, oh, well, I can't complete it because I don't have the character. Well, what if you could use a free reroll to then get a different challenge that says, I don't know, hit 20 down specials or whatever it might be. This is another feature that I really hope makes it back into the game. But the best thing about this was, on top of the one free daily one, you could continue re-rolling with a currency that was in the game known as gold, which we'll get to in just a second. And I believe it cost either 1 or 200 gold to re-roll other daily challenges that you did not want or did not want to attempt to try because maybe you couldn't or whatever the story might be. But re-rolling challenges, at least daily challenges, not sure about weekly challenge, but at least daily challenges, I think this would be really good idea for the devs to bring back at some point. Speaking of gold used to be a currency in Multiverses that had a plethora of uses, and well, gold being an in-game currency wasn't a premium currency. This wasn't something you bought. No, gold was something that you earned mainly through playing matches. At the end of the match, you got your battle pass XP and you got a little bit of gold on top of it. And gold had many uses. For example, you could unlock fighters with this. You could unlock profile icons. You could unlock certain variants of characters, as well as, well, perks. Well, as we all know, and you could also unlock toast. They need to bring that back. We need to be able to buy toast again, please. Who doesn't want to? If I want to be able to toast more players, please, Player First Games, give me the option to at least buy some more toast somehow, please. But as we all know, fighters now have their own fighter currency to unlock, and of course perks have their own currency with perk currency. So gold, I'd be okay with them just bringing gold back and adding another currency altogether. But again, gold could do so many more things. You could earn gold at the end of a match, or if they don't bring gold back at all, at least apply what gold used to do at the end of matches, right? When you played a match, you got gold. So how about Multiverses implements some sort of feature where at the end of a fight, you can earn a little bit of fighter currency. That way you can kind of keep the spirit of gold alive, and well, it will drastically help people unlock more characters, because let's face it, it is a bit of a grind to unlock characters if you are new. Speaking of perks, we touched on one earlier in the video, but how about another one? Tasmanian trigonometry. This one was used by quite a bit of people. I don't know if I'll say this was one of the best perks, but this definitely had its use. But as you can see, solo function, if you just used it just for yourself in ones, your team, or you, receives a 15% increased base knockback influence. I mean, that's pretty big. 15% is a lot, but now imagine if you're using this in twos and you stack it with your teammate, you now get 25% increased base knockback influence. This was such a really fun and sort of different perk, and maybe that's kind of why they removed it or didn't re-add it to the game, because maybe it just made things a bit too chaotic. So maybe if they bring it back, they might need to adjust the numbers a little bit. But this was such a fun different kind of secondary perk than, we usually see in these type of games. So I wish Multiversus would do more of these type of perks. Just go with something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary than we normally see. So this, I would, I'll stick my neck out there. I'll say, bring this one back, player first games. And the last thing we'll talk about, at one point, Multiversus had their own arcade mode. Yep, they had an arcade mode. It was a thing. They added it post launch of the open beta version of the game, and it came with 3 difficulties: easy, medium, and hard. It's kind of cool. In fact, it even had its own badge. Yeah, I think the badge was for defeating the hard mode difficulty. It kept track of how many different characters you used to defeat arcade mode. So it's kind of a cool thing. I could see why arcade mode ended up, disappearing, because arcade mode kind of got transformed into what we now have with the Rift modes. Arcade mode was just, all right, here's a couple fights that you go through, and then, get a boss of giant rain dog at the very end of it. So they took arcade mode and really morphed it and transformed it into something much better and much different than what we did have with arcade mode. But this was a thing in the game at one point, so I'm glad that this version of, arcade mode is gone and we ended up getting Rift mode because, in my opinion, Rift modes were, definitely better than arcade mode. It's so cool.